what would you say to the people who oppose your getting out, that think you ought to stay in jail for what you did? What would you say to them, the family of the 71-year-old man who was killed?
I try to redeem myself. I tell them I really didn't try to kill the man. I jugged him in the arm. I didn't know the knife had penetrated his chest. And
how old were you?
17.
He was 71 years old. You knew he was an old man.
No, sir. He scared me. See, I'd had my back when he grabbed me, and I just turned around and I just jugged him in the arm.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. There are 4 members present, 1 member absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. And so for those who are joining us this morning, just because we have 4 members, not 5 members, it will take a unanimous vote for a favorable decision.
We are about to watch the commutation hearing of a man who was locked up in Angola back in 1972. That's when he escaped. He escaped and stabbed a 71-year-old man to steal his car. Now, he was initially given the death penalty, but due to appeal, it was commuted to life. And now he has the chance at getting a commutation hearing and a chance at freedom. I'll unpack it with the details at the end.
David Barr, 75309.
All right. So you heard all the introductions of the pardon board members, did you not?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let me just read some identifying information, and then your case has been assigned to Mr. Jones. I'll turn it over to him. He'll ask you some questions, and then we'll hear from those folks. We'll also hear from Warden Falgout, and then we'll hear from those who've indicated they'd like to speak on your behalf today, and at the end, you'll be allowed to make a statement.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, Mr. Foy, you're currently serving a life sentence for a murder conviction. You were sentenced to life on February 1st, 1972 out of Calcasieu Parish. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jones. Answer his questions, please.
Good morning, Mr. Ford. How are you doing this morning?
All right.
Good. Mr. Ford, let's start off with disciplinary actions. I see you had a tough time adjusting with your Mr. Ford, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You have anything to say? I see your last write-up was in 2015, but seems like you had a tough time prior to that adjusting. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir.
What have you done as far as programs, whatever, to help with that situation?
I got my GED. I took 1 year college, the comprehensive 10, I think it's 101, I'm not sure. And I took all my certificates for anger management, substance abuse, and I sent all the copies of my certificates to the board members.
Yes. And if I'm correct, this murder occurred, you were already doing time for a burglary, is that correct?
No, sir, armed robbery.
Armed robbery, I'm sorry. Yeah, armed robbery. And escape, and while you were out on the escape is when this murder occurred?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What could you tell us this morning, or let us know why should we even consider a sentence reduction or whatever for you this morning?
I was 17 years old. I was having problems adjusting, and I was just stupid and immature. I didn't mean to kill that man. I told people what happened. I jugged him in his arm. The knife went through his arm, and I think it's Pierce is hard or something. He was a mechanic, and I put him in the trunk. And I used to steal cars when I was a little boy, and I used to get out the truck, and I thought he knew how to get out. I didn't really mean to hurt him. I didn't mean to kill him.
Yes.
I was just stupid and immature.
Okay. And so through your years incarceration in programs and maturity, you think you got past that in your life.
Yes, sir.
What kind of work?
I done found God.
What kind of work are you doing now at the facility? Are you able to do any type of work?
They got me as general orderly. I sweep and I mop.
In your dormitory?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You say you got your GED, is that correct?
Sir?
You were able to get your GED while incarcerated?
Yes, sir.
Was they back before you commit these crimes, were you having a problem with alcohol, drugs, or anything of that nature?
No, sir.
With alcohol or drugs. Okay. I don't have any other questions for him at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Roche?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Foy, good morning.
Good morning.
You are fast approaching your 68th birthday, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And I see you've been in and out the hospitals, but the last time you were in 2019. How are you doing now?
I'm all right. I ain't got no balance, that's all.
So your equilibrium is off.
Yes, sir.
And you make another milestone, you'll be incarcerated for 50 years in September of this year, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So tell me, why haven't you taken more programs? I'm concerned about you not taking as many programs as I would like. Why haven't you taken more programs? I know you were a lifer and it was hard to do it when you first got in, but in recent years, why haven't you taken more programs?
Well, they stopped back at Camp Bell. They stopped the victim awareness program because of the virus.
Okay.
We don't have no place to meet.
Okay, but I'm talking, why didn't you take more programs between 2015 and the time that the virus started?
I stayed in the cell block.
Okay.
On my own request, because I felt like I get along better in the cell by myself than out in population.
Okay, that explains it. But now, let me give you a suggestion, Mr. Foy. If you're successful today, you need to start taking more programs.
Yes, sir.
Because if you're successful today and the governor sees fit to sign a commutation of sentence, when you come up for parole, that's going to hurt you.
Yes, sir.
So I will start requesting and enrolling in as many classes as I can, get it under your belt, so when it's time for a parole hearing, you'll have that done, okay?
Yes, sir.
So tell this panel this morning why it should vote to recommend to the governor that he commute your sentence.
Why you want them to vote for you?
Oh, I didn't mean to kill that man. I like to be redeemed and go home and join my family and learn how to live a life that's productive to society. And I like to go out there and I like to spread the testimony and the gospel.
Mr. Foy, how long did you stay in confined quarters at your own request?
I think about 8 or 9 years, I'm not sure.
So you sort of a loner. You perform better. You do better without any company.
So,
You perform better. You feel better about yourself when you're not around so many people.
yes, sir.
Now, if you're released, you're going to go back into society, and then a part of being in society is getting along with other people.
I get along with all my family members. I'm staying with my mom. So
Okay.
I won't be going nowhere.
How long have you been out of confined quarters?
Since they discharged me out the hospital in
Warren Falco, can you answer that question for me, please?
Yes, sir. Looking at his record right here, he was moved. He had a stint where he was in and out of the hospital and our nursing units, but he moved on 8/9/16 to Camp J, Bass Dormitory, and then on 9/21/16 moved to Camp F, and has been at Camp F ever since.
So he's been out of confined quarters for about 5 years.
Yes, sir.
Good. Mr. Foy,
yes, sir.
please remember my suggestion. I would try to enroll in classes and start working on your good time as soon as this hearing is over, okay?
Yes, sir.
Madam Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Marabella?
Mr. Foy, how long were you on death row?
I'm not really sure. I can't remember.
Couple of years?
Yes, I think so.
I noticed in your application that you said that you found God on death row. Tell me a little bit about your conversion and tell me what thought process that was about.
I was asking for forgiveness for my actions. I used to read my daily bread, my Bible. My brother had brought me a good Bible up, and it interprets what you read. And I was reading it, and I was studying it while I was in the cell, because I was by myself, and I spent time, praising the Lord.
And what have you done since then in regards to your spiritual life?
I had my spiritual advisor come see me, and I used to always testify at church at Camp L.
Have you done any of that lately?
No, we don't have church back there no more because of the virus. They come to see us, but we have to sit outside. And when we go out there, I testify and I sing with them.
Now, you're in prison for what I would consider to be two of the most serious crimes in the book, murder and armed robbery. You were in prison for armed robbery when you escaped and committed this crime.
Yes, sir.
What would you say to the people who oppose your getting out, that think you ought to stay in jail for what you did? What would you say to them, the family of the 71-year-old man who was killed?
I try to redeem myself. I tell them I really didn't try to kill a man. I jugged him in the arm. I didn't know the knife had penetrated his chest. And
how old were you?
17.
He was 71 years old. You knew he was an old man.
No, sir. He scared me. See, I had my back when he grabbed me, and I just turned around and I just jugged him in the arm. I didn't know how old he was. I'm not gonna lie to you, And he was a mechanic, and I thought he would be able to get out of his trunk.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. He mentioned, let me just let you know, Mr. Foy, the opposition that we have noted in the record comes from the district attorney in Calcasieu Parish. Says opposed in the strongest terms possible. And the sheriff's office also expressed very strong opposition based on the nature of the crimes. You need to be aware of that.
Yes, ma'am.
We'd like to hear from Warden Falgout. Warden Falgout, is there anything you can add?
Not a whole lot. I mean, his last write-up, like everybody is looking at, was in January of 15. Since then, has not had any problems. Now, we are having to look further into this GED because we do not see in his record that he has been successful in completing his GED. So that's something that we'll have to look into. And we'll
Okay.
get with him, get with Mr. Foy to make sure that we get that taken care of. So that is a question. Since then, like I said, he's been in and out of the hospital initially back in 16, had one really short stay in 19. Other than that, he's been at Camp F and we've not had any problems since that last write-up in 15.
Good, thank you. Appreciate your input. So we'd like to hear from the folks who've indicated they'd like to speak. We'd like to hear from Mr. Larry Foy. You're on mute, sir.
Can y'all
There you
hear me
go.
now?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry. I was saying I'd like to quickly touch on some points. You was asking David, what has he done since the 2015 timeframe? Well, I don't know what your information shows, but real quickly, he was attacked on 2016, in 2016, and for a period of time from February to I think it was April, March and April, he was in and out of the hospital. Since then, he have memory lapses. He's not able to remember a whole lot of different things. Of course, during that time, he had a foot injury, but they had to resuscitate him, I believe, 2 or 3 times. But as a result, David really had to relearn how to even eat. For a month or so, he wasn't even able to stay in a bed. They had him laying on the floor because of the fact that, you know, he didn't have the ability to stand or any of that kind of stuff. So he really had to relearn a lot of things. And so that time frame where you're talking about from 15 to now, that lapse is just because of the fact that, you know, because of his mental capacity, he's not able to do a whole lot of things. And physically, he's not able to walk very far distances or stuff like that there. I don't know if that, it should be showing a lot of that in his medical records. But just when David was 17 years old, he had committed the robbery and he was in a low, I don't know, he was in a penitentiary where it wasn't a state penitentiary, wasn't what I consider a state or federal penitentiary. When he tried to escape, it was only because of the fact that, you know, at that time he had a young lady pregnant and she had denied him the ability to see his baby, and just being immature and emotional, he tried to leave so that he can try and deal with something that he really had no control over. And then, of course, the incident, the murder happened as a result of his trying to escape to get home. And since then, he has changed a lot. Once David did find God and stuff like that, he changed a whole lot. And then after that, he was attacked. And since then, he's just been having problems, medical issues and medical problems and stuff like that. Then I just want to recommend that, you know, we've noticed the change in him, in his attitude, in his heart, and his mindset. And we just request that they would go ahead on and release him. He's been in prison for 49 years now. And during that time frame, it changes an individual. And so he has changed. I believe it was, I can't remember which one of you guys were asking the question, but he's changed considerably in his thought processes, and he know that he can never bring that individual back, that the man back, but he does regret. He seriously does regret. Even before he was attacked, he regretted, and he's been trying to, just change his life as a result of that. I'm gonna go ahead on. I think I'm gonna go ahead on and turn it over to Mr. Weaver at this point in time. Is there any questions anybody would like to ask me real quick?
No, sir. Thank you, Mr. Larry. We appreciate your input. Mr. Weaver, we'd like to hear from you.
Good morning, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity. Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not going to take too long, but I think it's important that I add some credibility to my testimony. I've been in ministry for over 40 years. I've been serving prison ministry for 20 plus years, as well as having served in the United States Navy with leadership management. And part of that requires me to be a counselor to many people of different backgrounds, race, creeds, colors, religions. So that's the expertise that I bring to this table at this time. I am going to speak to you from my opportunity as being Mr. Ford's spiritual advisor. And when I'm asked to serve on pardon boards or advocate on behalf of people who have been incarcerated, there are three major areas that I consider and I have to be able to answer yes to before I will agree. The first one is, has the person really repented before God? Because any sin, no matter what the crime is, a crime is a sin before God first. And by the Spirit of God, I can testify that Mr. Ford has sincerely repented before God. He's already told you that he's asked God for forgiveness of his sins. And I like to remind everyone, before God, there's no such thing as a big sin or a little sin. Sin is sin. And crimes against the laws of man can be sometimes considered, well, it is considered sin. So in this case, I am confident through prayer and my interaction with Mr. Ford as his spiritual advisor, that his heart has truly been repentant before God. He's already asked God to forgive him of his sins. And we all know that God forgives all men of all sins through faith in our Lord Jesus Christ. So I can say yes to that. The second question I ask myself, when the person is released, do they have sufficient support, a support mechanism, apparatus when they get out? For in this case, Mr. Ford has been incarcerated almost 50 years, and there is a serious reacclimation to society that's important. And so on this question, does he have sufficient support, a support apparatus when he gets out? I can say yes. I know this family very well, and I am confident that they will be by his side, supporting him in every possible way. And I'll speak to one other pardon board that I had an opportunity to be present with, an individual that was at Angola. He was actually pardoned. He got out, and he had sufficient support from the family, and he's still doing well today. The third question I ask myself is, will this individual be beneficial in society? Now, I know many of the questions were kind of alluding to that, trying to determine whether or not Mr. Ford will be a productive citizen in society. And again, I can say yes. I say yes with this because of my 20 plus years in prison ministry, having seen individuals been released and get out and do well. Of course, society doesn't focus a lot on the do-wellers. Society doesn't focus a lot on the people who actually come out and are productive. But I promise you, that ratio is probably 8 out of 10. So to this question, I can say yes. In our society today, Mr. Ford would serve as a perfect candidate to help others, to persuade them to not to take the path that he took during his juvenile years. And lastly, I'd like you guys to consider this. And of course, I always speak from a spiritual perspective and from a biblical perspective. In the Bible, God ordained and commanded that the children of Israel in the 50th year, that they would release everyone that was incarcerated or in prison, as we call it today, and that was in debt to them. I'd like you guys to consider the fact that when you grant this man's his pardon, Mr. Foy's pardon, you will actually be cooperating with the Jubilee years of God as he commanded the children of Israel. And I appreciate your serious consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. We appreciate your input. Mr. Henderson? There you go.
There we go. I was trying to unmute. You know, normally I don't have a problem following people talking, but Pastor Weaver's kind of like a hard act to follow. I've been knowing David pretty much all of our life. We're pretty much the same. David's like a few months older than I am. But when I first met David, David was on death row. And how I come to meet him on death row, we had started this program inside the prison, death row seminars, to kind of like bring community to the guys that were on the road. And so it's kind of like from that backdrop that I met David. And I think David's trajectory inside of the prison literally started there. And it's kind of like when Mr. Roche was asking about, well, why did you kind of like, you know, self-impose these kind of restrictions on yourself by being in a cell block? Most folks who come off a death row have been on death row in a single man cell for years. And so that isolation becomes a part of their fabric. This is how they've learned to live and survive and sustain themselves in that environment. And so inside the prison, there's a step down program. So when you come from death row, you go into one of the cell blocks to kind of like help folks acclimate with being around other people. From extended lockdown, you go to a working cell block, and that way you're coming outside. And then from there, you have an opportunity to go live in the dormitory. Well, David chose to kind of like, given his initial experience, just to stay in that closed environment for his own self. And even in the end, it kind of like, you know, kind of like didn't serve him well, because, you know, sometimes in that environment, folks who live in cell blocks can be stigmatized in a way that they've been in a cell block because they're bad people. And that's not always the case. We have, you know, had protection units inside the prison for folks who self-imposed, wanted to be there or had to be there for their own benefit. But David, since he's been off of death row, I have seen David really grow and really grow. And in the sense of, you see folks who at one point you see them, and every time you see them, they kind of like moving in the wrong direction. And then you kind of like see them, and then you wonder, where was this transformation? What happened? And in this case with David, like I said again, you know, everybody finds faith in God at different intervals in their life. And sometimes it's hard, especially if with people being inside. People say, well, everybody go to prison, find God. Well, everybody in prison needs to find God. I mean, more than anybody else. And I think in that spirit that David realized then that I need a higher power. I need some direction in my life. And Pastor Weaver has been a benefit to David. I mean, Pastor Weaver has been a benefit to me, because I know Pastor Weaver personally. And we do a lot of social justice work inside of our communities and stuff like that. Plus, David's family, one of his sisters is a member of our organization. And just through seeing what this kind of like half a century of commitment to going to see her brother, staying connected to her brother, and being there for him. You know, 50 years is a long time. When we first started talking about this, and Mr. Roche asked that question, I was like, oh, 50 years. We talking about 1970. All the way to 2021 where we're at. And even given the fact that, you know, folks have taken different trajectories inside that environment, where some folks have went and, you know, they were kind of like became the cream of the crop. Some folks still struggle trying to figure out where they're at today inside that environment. But David's real strength has come from, he's had that external support that a lot of folks don't have. And so when his brother Larry talked about his difficulties now with his memory lapses, it kind of like had me kind of like choked up to see him struggling to trying to explain himself. Because that has never been one of his shortcomings, trying to explain who he is and what he is and what he's about. But seeing him struggle trying to recall stuff, and it's primarily because of the last incident where he was attacked, it has impacted him dramatically. And so, I would ask the board, and keeping with what Pastor Weaver saying, given the fact that it has been 50 years that he has been in prison, won't undo what he did, but at least it's kind of like just reckoning with that time and that period of wanting to say, even when Mr. Marabag asked him, what would you tell the family? And it just couldn't string that phrase together about his empathy. All he could talk about was his redemption, that he has redeemed himself in a way, and hoping that that redemption says enough about him that he is remorseful for what he done, because he kept saying, it wasn't my intention to kill him. The guy was a mechanic. I assumed he could figure his way out of the matchbox, which didn't happen. And so I just asked this board to kind of like consider all the circumstances, not just the fact of the heinous crime that was committed, but the impact that David's actually been in prison. This year would be 50 years. And he has a family. Most folks after 50 years, like the old folks say, don't have a pot in the window. And, David have all of that. He has not only one family member, he have a group of family members, plus his mother. And so it would be kind of like a real blessing for the family, for him to finally be able to be at some family gathering. And I know we always think about, well, the victims and the victim families don't have that same opportunity. And, we understand that. And I just pray and hope that David is given, especially at his age and his medical condition, that he's really considered for a clemency. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Mr. Foy, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yes, ma'am. I'd just like to say I was young, I was stupid, and I just didn't know no better. I'm sorry. I didn't really mean to kill that man. I told the police exactly what I'm telling you. He scared me. I took him in the arm. I did not realize it had pierced his heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I told that to the two detectives.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Foy. I would entertain a motion for executive session.
Thank you.
I so move.
We have a motion by Mr. Roche, second by Mr. Jones. Miss Teresa, could you call the roll?
Ms. Renazza,
Yes.
Mr. Roche,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Marabella,
He may
Mr.
be having-
Marabella lost connection, but he did hear the motion and is in favor of going in executive session.
All right. We'll be in executive session, a few moments to discuss confidential matters. Could we ask Warden Falgood to join the executive session, please?
Sure.
Okay. We'll be right back. Stand by, Mr. Foy. We are back in regular session. We had some technical issues we had to deal with, as well as the confidential discussion. So we are prepared to vote. This was Mr. Jones's case, so he will vote first. Mr. Jones?
Yes. Mr. Foy?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to tell you that, of course, we want to thank the warden for speaking on your behalf this morning. And of course, Mr. Weaver and Mr. Henderson did a great job speaking on your behalf and explaining to us where you are. Your brother did a great job. And my vote today would be to commute your sentence, 99, with immediate eligibility.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Roche?
Mr. Foy, based upon your age, the length of your incarceration, in a low risk assessment score and positive remarks by the warden, my recommendation to the governor will be to commute your sentence to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Mr. Marabella.
Mr. Foy, I agree with my colleagues, both Mr. Jones and Mr. Roche. It would be my vote to commute your sentence to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility.
Thank you.
And I agree, Mr. Foy. My vote, based on your age, your length of incarceration, you have a low risk score, is to commute your sentence to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility. So we will make that recommendation on your behalf to Governor Edwards. Good luck to you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
And one Falgout, if you could help get him in some programs, we'd appreciate it.
We'll definitely take care of that.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Cheryl, are we released?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for your participation today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank the board.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
And they made a recommendation to the governor, and the governor granted. He was part of the 56 commutations that the governor made just from October through December of 2023, right before he left office. And we are on a mission to cover each and every single one of these 56 parole hearings. We created a playlist down below. Check it out. It's called The Purge if you want to see those hearings. Now, I'm going to save my unpacking for the end because we're going to jump forward to the future of 2024 to see his parole hearing. Before we do, let's take a moment to talk about Aura. If you've been watching this channel long enough, you would know how seriously I take my privacy. So when I saw in the news that National Public Data announced that they suffered a major breach, potentially impacting every American, that really blew my mind. They say that over 2.9 billion records that are used for background checks. This includes personal information like full names, address, date of birth, phone numbers, and social security numbers, that it's been hacked, and confirmed that members of the hacker group release this information online for free for everyone to access. Why they would do this, who knows? But when they're caught, when we cover their parole hearing, I hope that it's a resounding deny. Now, anyways, if you haven't been taking your personal information that's online seriously, I think now is the time to change that. We're more vulnerable than ever before in today's landscape. And thankfully, I feel secure with Aura, the sponsor of this video. I've been using it for nearly a year now. I get an email in my inbox every week. I click into it. I get all the information right there. It makes me sleep better at night. And on top of it, they offer a $5 million in identity theft insurance for worst case scenario. There's a side quality of life improvement as well that I personally love. And that is that Aura has nearly stopped all spam calls. I used to get 6, 7 a day. It stopped. That to me makes it worth it in itself. If you want to give it a 2-week trial, go to the link in the description below, aura.com/Mandu. Please keep in mind that there will not be a drop-down option in the YouTube box that says Mandu, but it still will attribute to me if you use that link. Anyways, let's go back to the hearing.
And on December 13th, 2023, you received a commutation of sentence to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility. The parole eligible date was 8/1/21. You're not eligible for good time. The full term date is July 7th, 2027. Does that information sound correct to you, Mr. Foy?
Yes, sir.
All right. So you get the first question. Tell us what you did to get yourself incarcerated and why do you think we should let you go?
Okay. Just a long time.
You,
Larry.
I killed Mr. Keller, Sylvester Keller, in an escape attempt. I'm remorseful for Mr. Keller's death. I realized how much I hurt him and his family. And I ask God daily for forgiveness. I can't imagine the pain and suffering that I caused his family. I've been living with this remorse for 53 years. And I asked him and his family for mercy.
Warden, do you have anything that you'd like to say regarding his progress or his comments there? I mean, his behavior there?
Yes, sir. How y'all doing again? He is a Class B trustee. He's completed anger management, 100 hours. I would recommend that if he would be granted parole, he attend and take the victim awareness class.
Thank you. Is that, no. Today we have in support a lengthy list of people. So we'll start with your friend, Susan Myers. Ms. Myers, go ahead and tell us what you gotta say regarding Mr. Floyd.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Susan Myers, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today on behalf of David Foy. I'm an attorney who worked with Mr. Foy a couple of years ago, but I'm here today in my capacity as his friend. But I would like to tell you a little bit about my professional background because I think it's relevant here. For the first 14 years of my career as an attorney, I worked exclusively with people with disabilities who, because of their disabilities, needed help navigating systems and policies and processes that sometimes overwhelmed them or shut them out entirely. You know from the materials you've received that Mr. Foy suffered a brain injury some years ago, and the injury affected and to this day continues to affect his ability to focus on immediate tasks and his short-term memory, among some other problems that it causes him. But I see in David Foy's something I saw in my clients all the time in those years, not determination to reach goal, despite barriers, even when reaching that goal requires taking his past. Mr. Foy's goal has been, yes, to return home to his family, but more importantly than that, his goal is rehabilitation and protection for his past actions. His goals will remain over the rest of his life. For his presence. I hope you will grant his application for parole and thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. The next person we'll go to is Mr. Kerry Myers from the Parole Project.
Thank you, and good morning, Terry Myers with the Louisiana Parole Project. We're here to support Mr. Foy. We've supported Mr. Foy through his clemency process, and we continue supporting Mr. Foy to grant parole today. Parole Project is very uniquely suited to help him and grant his parole today.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have Miss Maggie Eubanks with LSU Law Clinic, wanting to speak in support.
Mr. Barra, Robert Lancaster with LSU Law Clinic representing David Foy today. Ms. Eubanks is prepared as a second-year student to give a statement of support. If there are additional supporters speaking, we would request that she be allowed to speak at the conclusion of those additional supporters.
Okay, we have one other supporter, but that's highlighted to speak, but the staff told me he wasn't. Larry Foy. Is Larry Foy ready to speak? Yes. All right, Larry Foy.
Yes, I'm ready to speak.
All right, go ahead, Larry Foy.
Yeah, as Mr. Myers just said, my brother was 18 years old at the time. He was the original reason he went to prison was robbery. He was just being stupid. He was trying to get money for his pregnant girlfriend at the time. Unfortunately, after being sent to minimum security prison, he again tried to see his born child, his recently born child at the time, and in doing so, he committed the act of not intentionally killing Mr. Kelly, and since then, he's been really remorseful for that, especially after he himself was attacked and had no real recollection or understanding of what he had done. he had to literally rethink or literally had to review, research those things that he was committed, what he was in jail for prior to his attack. Prior to his attack, he found the Lord, and since his attack, he continues to love the Lord, and he's continued to try and be an example for those around him, just to redeem. We talked about redemption and just to try and better himself for the crime that was committed. Anyway, since then, David has done the necessary steps that he had to do while there, as far as completing his GED and other things. He is very knowing my brother from the time he found the Lord and prior to. He's a very changed person. He's changed. He had a hard time recalling and recollecting a lot of things, but he took the opportunity to, I want to say, investigate or research is the word I'm looking for. What he actually did, and to the Kelly family. And since then, he's reached out and he's tried to do better. And I believe that if you allow him to come reintegrate himself back in society, he can be used in the programs at the church and different things where he can speak to youth and have them understand the consequences of decisions made. Whether what those consequences might be later on down the road. David has read and studied up on just the actions and consequences of his actions and stuff like that, and consequences of actions of things that people do. So he's ready to step forward and be an example to those young individuals and help them to better understand what it is that how to take time to breathe and think rather than just react toward situations and circumstances that's going on in their lives. It is my request that the parole board grant him his parole so that he might be able to spend the last few years that my mother might have here on earth. She might get those and just giving the opportunity to spend some time with him. We know that what happens to we can never change that or replace what they lost. But I pray that God will show them forgiveness or such what they might be able to give and allow David to be re-entered into society. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Lancaster, you and Ms. Eubanks are the last two on the list to speak.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Barra. My name is Maggie Eubanks. I'm a second-year law student at LSU, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity to speak on Mr. David Foy's behalf. I'm participating in the parole and reentry clinic under Professor Lancaster's supervision, and it's been a joy and an honor getting to know David these past few months and getting to know his story. He comes before you today after a grant of clemency from Governor John Bel Edwards, and he was successful in his application for clemency after he demonstrated to the board the same things I believe that he will demonstrate to you today. 53 years ago, David was a different person. He was an 18-year-old who was young, who was impulsive, and who never thought through the decisions before he made them. But today, David comes before you asking for parole as a patient, trustworthy, and kind 71-year-old man. And he has worked the past 53 years of his life to rehabilitate himself, and he has gained Class B trustee status, which he has held without a write-up since 2016. David is also at an extremely low risk for recidivism. He has a low Tiger score, and when you couple that with his increased age and medical issues, it displays that David is no longer a threat to reoffend. To consider the previously stated reasons and respectfully request that you grant David Foy's parole. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lancaster.
I have no comments at this time, Mr. Barra. If there is anything at the end right before the vote that I can clarify, I'll do so, but I don't have anything to add at this point. I think Ms. Eubanks summarized things quite well.
You did. Thank you all. We also have some supporters who are not with us at LSP or on Zoom who are not willing to speak, and I would like to put them in the record. We have Adrienne Hutchinson, from an attorney for the Parole Project, I believe. We have Betty Grayson, a sister, in support. We have Carolyn Young, a sister, in support. We have Hannah Lewis, LSU Law Clinic, in support. And we have Norris Henderson with First 72 in support. In opposition, we don't have anyone here to speak, but we do have opposition from law enforcement documented in the pre-parole investigation, and that shows that the judge is no longer on the bench, so we have no comment from him. The district attorney's office is opposed, quoting, "He killed a man while escaping from prison." The sheriff is opposed with a quote, "He is a threat to the community." The chief of police is opposed with no comment. The attorney general's office is opposed due to the serious nature of the crime. Ms. Renata, the case is assigned to you, So you go ahead and start with the first question.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Foy.
Morning.
Nice to see you again. I saw you at your pardon hearing in 2021,
Yes, ma'am.
and I voted for you then.
Yes, ma'am.
So what struck me as I reviewed your record in preparation for today, I wrote that you've done 53 years of your life sentence. Mr. Sylvester Keller was 71 years old at the time you killed him. That's the same age you are now?
Yes, ma'am.
So in retrospect, tell us how you feel about that. I noticed that it doesn't appear that you've taken any victim awareness classes, or at least my record didn't reflect it. I'd like to know what you think about that now.
I didn't, excuse me.
Mr. Keller was the same age as you are now. Have you done any reflecting on that?
Yes, ma'am. I tried to do the best I can. I'm very remorseful for what happened. If I could change it, I would give my life Mr. Keller's life. I didn't necessarily mean to kill him. I was impulsive, I was immature, and I just acted off reflex. He startled me. And I did, I took his life. I'm sorry. I can't change that.
No, you can't. I do. Mr. Byra, I told you about the opposition, which was present at the time of your hearing. After an extensive search, they were unable to locate members of Mr. Keller's family. So there's no express opposition from his family. I know what happened. I have the record. I reviewed it carefully. And I stand by my previous vote. I'm going to defer to my colleagues for their questions because they weren't on that pardon board.
Ms. Stapleton, you got a question?
Yeah, I had noticed the same thing Ms. Renata did, that it was an irony that you're 71 years old, the same age your victim was 71 years old, but she's covered that. But I thought that was ironic that we were seeing that today. I wanted to ask someone else possibly. The warden recommended that you complete the victim awareness class, but I keep hearing you've got a brain injury and short-term memory. Would he even be able to take the victim awareness class and pass it, go through it? Is that something he's capable of doing right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, okay. That's what I did want to know that. And I think that was that's my only question about that. Yes. I'm finished.
I don't have any question. Are we ready to go? Ms. Renata, go ahead.
Yes. Mr. Foy, I voted for you in March of 2021. I stand by that vote. My vote is going to be to grant conditionally after you complete the victim awareness class. And the basis for my vote is, the age at the time of your crime, the age you are now, the length of incarceration, you have a low risk score, and frankly, you would get out anyway in 3 years. So you have a good plan with the parole project. I would add a condition, should you be granted today, you do not go back to Calhoun Parish.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Stapleton?
Today, I'm going to have to deny because there's strong opposition from law enforcement, because at the time it was an escape. And I know you said that the man startled you, but the records show that you actually went to the garage and y'all were talking, that he asked you not to put him in the trunk of the vehicle, that he gave the keys to you, and that you stabbed him. You said on the right side and it pierced his heart. So the records reflect, and that was, I'm assuming from your statement as to what happened during that time, that you stabbed him. and you put him in the trunk and he was found later. So today, I'm gonna have to deny you based upon the serious nature of the crime and the adamant, strong, denial from the, law enforcement agencies.
And I'm gonna have to vote with Ms. Stapleton for the same reasons, that the crime was committed during an escape from prison for a prior crime. That's a big deal. So, Mr. Boyd, today your parole has been denied. And this concludes our business with you today.
Thank you.
Wow. Wow. So I was shocked by this result. I did not look in the spreadsheet because Richard puts it. I did not look. I thought this was a shoo-in. I thought for sure he was going to be granted. I thought it was just going through the process. But you know, this is what happens. So remember, this is part of the governor's 56, and we have a playlist for it. The governor's 56. Governor Edwards, before he left office, commuted 56 people in the last 3 months. He commuted, I don't know, probably well over 100, if not more. But in the last 3 months of his term, he commuted 56 inmates, October through December. And here's the list. And we have a spreadsheet for it, and we're going through each of these hearings one by one. So check the playlist. And here's the thing, it's just not a shoo-in. You know, previously, when you have someone who's commuted and then they go to parole, it's the same parole board. It's the same, right? You're not, you know, if it was the same governor, he would have been paroled. Because the governor's not going to say, wait a minute, you recommend to go from life sentence to parole, I sign off on it, and then a year later you deny him? You're making me look like an idiot. But because it's a new governor with a new parole board, except Ms. Renatz is the same, Pete Freeman's the same, otherwise it's new, they have a different agenda. And it's interesting because he fits really every bucket to get released. He's older, which means he's expensive for the DOC, and we know that they don't, you know, that these prisons are publicly traded, and they have lobbyists, and they're about profit, and he's a walking expense report. He's expensive. He also happens to, you know, he's been in there a long time. He's not dangerous to anyone. Let's be real, right? He's got the support of the Parole Project and Henderson, and he's got look at the support at the bottom with their name titles, and he's got you know, and he's got family support, which is very unique at this stage to have that kind of support, albeit the ridiculousness of his brother's statement. I fast forward the other statements, and I want to make an apology to the attorney in training. I did not fast forward you because I didn't think you did a good job. I just fast forward because for the sake of time, I try to keep these hearings into 1 hour. You did a great job. If you came upon this, it's not an insult to you. You're going to make a great attorney, I'm sure. But please don't take it personally. But the other, normally we fast forward all the supporting statements, and they were so ridiculous. They're so just absolutely like cloud in the sky, messed up. First of all, his brother comes on and says he was just trying to see his unborn child, or his girlfriend was pregnant. And it's like, are you kidding me? He's on work release when he escapes and murders someone. He's sentenced to death. It's so bad. And then they commuted to life, and they commuted to life because I don't even want to. Well, it was a jury thing. So defendant was convicted of murder and was sentenced to death. He's appealed relying on bills. Now the background: September 9th, 1972, he was an inmate at Louisiana Correctional. So he was an inmate at Angola, but he was lucky because he was allowed to be in a work crew. And he escaped the work crew, changed his clothes. When an occupant of the residence returned, he fled, leaving his prison guard behind. A short time later, Sylvester Keller, the operator of Pat's garage, was found dead, and his personal car was missing. And and then they found out that he stabbed him and stole his car. And the whole thing, it's really just ridiculous. And go back to the commutation hearing before, where even Mr. Roche approved it. I think if they had had a 5-member board, Mr. Roche would have denied. But again, because it was only whatever. But for his brother to come on and say that, it's just inexcusable. He's out on armed robbery, and then the irony of it too, that he murders a man, and it just puts things in perfect perspective. Okay, 71 years old, the same age he is now, he murders him to take his. There is no reason to even have the knife out. And the idea, there's one thing but for his brother to still sing that same tune, it just, oh. And then you have, forget that. Then you have, but you have the oh my God, the preachers that were going on saying the most ridiculous things. At least you can see Miss Renata's face she was making as he's saying it. What did he say? He said, he's just talking about how God forgives, so he's already forgiven. Like, dude, like, what are you saying? I just had to get that out. It was just so ridiculous. But I'm still surprised that they denied. I frankly would have been for him getting paroled. I don't think he's a danger, and the victim's family isn't there to get hurt, to feel victimized again. So for those reasons, even with all that stuff, I'm just like, let him out, but he might die in prison. I mean, he's 71 is still young, but he's an older 71, and I don't think he'll be able to reapply because of his crime for another 5 years. That's going to be a lifetime for him. Right there you have it. What did you think? Did you think they should have paroled? Anyways, with that, I'll let you go.
And by the Spirit of God, I can testify that Mr. Foy has sincerely repented before God. He's already told you that he's asked God for forgiveness of his sins. And I'd like to remind everyone, before God, there's no such thing as a big sin or a little sin. Sin is sin. And crimes against the laws of man can be sometimes considered, well, it is considered sin. So in this case, I am confident through prayer and my interaction with Mr. Foy as his spiritual advisor, that his heart has truly been repentant before God. He's already asked God to forgive him of his sins. And we all know that God forgives all men of all sins through faith in our Lord Jesus Christ.